Good morning, Dr. Pao. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Jesse, how are you?
Good, doing well. I just want to talk today about some of the seismic changes in therapy and vaccine development that we've seen in the past 3 years. It's been a really incredible time, and just this really increasing rate of scientific breakthroughs over the past 3 years. Getting the COVID-19 vaccines tested, approved, and distributed was really one of the great breakthrough success stories of recent history, and Pfizer was at the center here in the US. So many years of research and structure building came to bear at a critical time and just cleared this record-breaking path. Tell me a little bit about how the pathways to clinical trials and approval have changed as a result, and what are some of the lessons that are being implemented in your other programs at Pfizer?
Yeah, sure. So I think we all know, and we've lived through the COVID pandemic, and it's really quite remarkable that within a short period of time, I think 9 months, Pfizer was able to deliver a vaccine that would help prevent hospitalization and death, and not only a vaccine, but then in 20 months deliver an antiviral pill, Paxlovid, which also cut the rate of hospitalization and death. So I think from those examples, you can see that clinical trial development has really accelerated. Not only do you see the technological advancements, but the ability to execute trials at high quality with speed and to deliver for patients who are waiting, I think is really, really quite remarkable. And we want to leverage that experience now at Pfizer to apply that across the entire portfolio. I think many people have heard that we call the programs Lightspeed, and we're trying to apply that Lightspeed mentality not only to our COVID programs, but across the whole portfolio. And I can get into details about that.
Yeah, by all means. And tell me, there's a remarkable number of people, not just in the U.S., but around the world that you've affected through these programs.
Yeah, so when I went from academia to industry in 2014, one of my big motivations was to impact a huge number of patients. So I was seeing before in academia individual patients in the clinic, also had a lab and helped support trials. But one of the big reasons I went into pharma was to impact huge numbers of patients. And last year, Pfizer touched 1.3 billion people on the planet. That's 1 out of every 6 people on the planet with our vaccines and medicines. So yeah, it's very quite a huge number, I would say.
Absolutely, we hear these patient stories like Emily and Tom gave us, and that's just 1 or 2 people, and then to think about billions in the B with the
yeah.
B is really, really quite incredible.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the specifics? On a practical level, what does that Lightspeed development timeline mean? Where is this being implemented?
Yeah, so in terms of the Lightspeed timelines, what we're trying to do is think about how we would address that across the entire portfolio. And a lot of that involves rapid decision making, parallel processing of molecules and potential candidates, working closely with the regulatory agencies to make sure that we're in sync with what is expected, and then also speeding up recruitment cycle times. So some of you might know that it may take up to 3 years sometimes to recruit for trials, and we're really looking to see how can we make that much easier. You might know that only 5% of people actually participate in clinical trials. 70% of patients actually live more than 2 hours away from a clinical trial site, and 80% of clinical trials don't even finish on time. So we're really looking at each step of the way to figure out how to speed up our clinical cycle times and then apply that not only to vaccines, but also to areas such as oncology, immunology, internal medicine, and so on.
Absolutely, and that's always balanced against trial accessibility, and we want to make sure that trials are accessible across a wide population. Can you tell me about some of the efforts that Pfizer is doing in that area?
Yeah, I think you're touching upon diversity and inclusion. So diversity and inclusion are not new to Pfizer, but the COVID pandemic really highlighted the need to make sure that we were including a diverse group of patients for the vaccine. And so we were able to do that really because not only was everyone invested in it, it's not only good for patients, but it's also good science, but also because we held people accountable for it and we had internal metrics for it. So moving forward, we're paying very, very close attention to that. We have deliberate metrics on each program to try to achieve diversity and inclusion in terms of ethnically and racially diverse populations that would match the census or above in the US, or if that's appropriate for the particular disease that we're studying. So we take it very seriously, and we expect our entire group to take that seriously.
Absolutely. So with that kind of North Star guiding you, what does the next 18 months look like for Pfizer's development pipeline? You know that you are developing an RSV vaccine that's in stage 3 clinical trials that has a potential to affect an enormous amount of people. What are some of the examples of things that you're doing?
Yeah, so right now at Pfizer, we're in an unprecedented period where we have 19 launches over a period of 18 months. That includes also 8 new molecular entities. If you include Paxlovid, that's 9, because we already have an emergency use authorization for that. So I think in many companies, you're very happy if you have 1 or 2 new launches a year. But as I said, we have 19 over a period of 18 months. So unfortunately, I don't have time to go through each one of those, but I will highlight 2 particular ones. One is our respiratory syncytial virus vaccine that we expect to get approval shortly. We have actually 2 indications, one in older adults and then one for infants and newborns, where we actually immunize pregnant mothers and they pass the antibodies on to their children just at the time of birth when the infection is the most, when babies are most susceptible. So you might have heard a lot about respiratory syncytial virus over the last winter. There was a particular outbreak. Worldwide, it affects hundreds of thousands of older adults, including requiring hospitalization and leading to deaths, and then also infants suffer worldwide as well. So we're very excited about that. You probably know that it's been about 50 years of people trying to develop vaccines for respiratory syncytial virus, and we hope to have ours approved by the end of this year. The other molecule I wanted to highlight is what we call elranatamab, or it actually has a commercial name now, Elrexfio. This is a B-cell maturation antigen targeted T-cell bispecific. We just heard Carl June and Michelle Savaline talk about CAR T-cells. This is an alternative way to activate the immune system against cancer. So elranatamab is a bispecific antibody where one arm of the antibody targets BCMA on myeloma cells, which is a hematologic malignancy, and the other arm targets CD3 on T cells. And by simultaneously targeting BCMA and CD3, you bring the T cell close to the tumor cell, and then the T cell kills the tumor cell. So this is an off-the-shelf alternative to CAR T cells. Should be available, in clinics throughout the world, assuming approval later this year. And we're very excited about the activity that we've seen in multiple myeloma and have a broad program to bring that benefit to patients.
Exciting work and definitely an effect on many people around the world. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today at the Breakthrough Summit.
Thanks a lot, Justin.